Welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Erica Jane. I like to make a lot of random videos, anything from homemaking, recipes, crafting, you name it. If I am interested in it, I will probably make a video on it. If that sounds good to you, make sure you stick around. Today, I want to talk to you guys about hormonal health, managing your periods, and some of the things that have benefited me immensely and really, I would say, saved my life, and that is not an understatement. So today we are going to be talking about cycle syncing, hormonal health, PMS, PMDD. If you don't know what those are, stay tuned because I'm going to talk to you all about those. So grab your drink. I have some water here. I just made myself a cup of coffee. Been reducing that. You'll hear more here. So grab yourself a tea, some water. Maybe you just want to chill and listen. I'm just going to pull up my notes here, and I will include those below as well if you prefer following along in like word transcript format. I think I'm going to break this video down into kind of talking about my experience, my symptoms, getting off prescription birth control, and then going into some of the products and things I've implemented in my life that have made a difference since then. Since my first period, they have been very intense. Cramping, blood loss, all of it. I am just generally completely wiped. There are big black circles under my eyes, and by like the third day, I can't really safely drive. Like, I'm too dizzy to safely operate a vehicle or go to work, really. Graciously, I have been able to slowly reduce and improve these symptoms over the last few years, and it has not been quick. I would say it has been quite a few years. I'm talking like 3 or 4 years of work and being aware of what's going on in my body to get to the point where I even understand what my symptoms are coming from. So for me, I had to get off the pill. That was the first step for me. So I was on birth control, just conventional birth control pill, from the age of 15 until, let's say, 24. I'm 27 now, you're 23, 24. So I was first prescribed birth control for managing my period symptoms, managing the blood loss, managing the cramps, and I was put on that at 15, and that was Yaz or Yasmin, which is no longer on the market because of blood clots. So I've been on Yaz, Yasmin, tricycline. There's so many, I don't even know all of them, but like went through all of the pills. That is the only type of birth control I have tried, though, in terms of like a pill or a needle or an IUD. I have not tried any of those. Now, the thing with the birth control pills, I was always getting breakthrough bleeding or other symptoms while on it. So they would just prescribe me a higher dose, and then I was like, my anxiety got really bad, my depression got really bad. I was not well. Whether it is just because of that or a lot of other things. I did go through therapy for PTSD as well, which you can learn more about. A few videos talking about my experience through prolonged exposure therapy, if that is something you're interested in. But that was a big area I had to navigate before understanding what was going on underneath all of the trauma. So I'm very out of breath. I stopped taking the pill around the end of 2018 and began using the fertility awareness method. Now, that is a method where you monitor your basal body temperature, so with a thermometer each morning, as well as your cervical fluid and some other symptoms. So you're just monitoring like your nausea, bloating, just like keeping track of what's going on there. Now, this method can be used for both preventative measures or to get pregnant, and it's an entirely natural way of birth control. And our bodies are actually designed to prevent pregnancy naturally unless we are in our fertile window. So it's really empowering once you start to learn more about these stages of your menstruation and your body, because you can understand when you're fertile and when maybe if you don't want to get pregnant, you can avoid sex, and if you do want to get pregnant, you can jump in. So this is a more natural method of monitoring your body, getting more in tune with yourself. I'm going to show you the book though, because it is right here, and it is probably my favorite book. Now I bought this book, but I also found it at Value Village, and I've got them for friends there. But it is a thick book. Like I'm talking like it is thick. And Taking Charge of Your Fertility, Toni Weshcler, I might be saying her name wrong. And there's a few other resources. I'll try and link them below. But this is so valuable because they have like they have charts that demonstrate like what certain conditions look like. So once you begin charting your symptoms and your cycles, it is way easier to diagnose and identify if you have PCOS, endometriosis, like a lot of these serious conditions that are so hard for doctors to diagnose or seem to find, even though women are struggling immensely with their periods. But this gives you a way to track it, and it's like if you show your doctor your symptom mapping, they can diagnose you based off of that, or at least have enough of an idea to pursue further diagnostic stuff, if that makes sense. When I'm passionate about something, I get really like I start talking really fast, and I think because I just have information on this, I can just talk. I'm just trying to like bring myself down. Yeah, honestly, I would say I think my body had to go through a bit of a detox after getting off the birth control pill, where I was not doing well, whether it was from trauma I was dealing with at that time, but it was like, yeah, it was an intense period where my periods were not in sync. They were all over the place, not consistent. I was vomiting because I was in so much pain for my periods. There was times where I thought my partner was literally gonna find me just like passed out in the bathroom because of how bad they were getting. Like everything was contracting, everything's coming up. You're just trying to stay like conscious, but like you're losing so much. Sorry, this is gonna be a TMI video probably, but yeah, you're losing so much blood, and then you're just like going through so much that your body's just like, I'm just gonna pass out, we're done here. Yeah, I feel like my body really had to go through a detox period after being on the pill for that long. And there's a lot of research around that now. The increase in anxiety, increase in depression in women from taking birth control for so long, because it affects your hormones. And then once you get off of it, those hormones are all freaking out of whack. And we are hormonal creatures. So it makes sense that like, I felt like shit. And like, I think a lot of other people do. So when I got to my breaking point, really, once things started to get quite bad, it was impacting my work, it was impacting relationships. So I started cycle mapping and actively tracking my cycle to see what I could find out. And what I've learned from that is that my cycles are quite short. And for a while, they were almost every 2 to 3 weeks apart. And then, yeah, so it'd be 2 weeks without a period, and then I'd have a period again. And then another 2 weeks without a period, and then it would come back again. So I would have like 2 periods a month where I was just like profusely bleeding. And that's like putting it lightly. Like the average amount of blood loss in a normal period is around 30 milliliters. And to give you an idea, for blood loss at that time, was using overnight reusable pads. So those fill 3 super tampons worth of blood, and I was going through 3 or 4 of those in a day. So it was like, and changing them in the night as well. So I was like borderline passing out the majority of my period. So I couldn't work, or if I was working, I was like like not doing well, not able to actually work. So that's really when I started to like look into it a lot more. Yeah, so I guess what I learned from kind of mapping my cycles and keeping track of that. One, they were very short and very heavy. And also the week before I was getting my periods, I was filled with like despair. Like I don't even know how to put it into words, but like dread, this hatred, this like panicked, irritable feeling. And it was just overwhelming. Like I'd want to quit my job. I'd want to break up with my partner that I'd been with for 5 years. Like things that were not rational. Like I'd be paranoid thinking he was cheating on me, which if you know him does not make sense. So it was like very intense feelings coming up every week to 2 weeks, like depending on how long my cycles were. But in that phase right before my period, and then as soon as my period would hit, it would be fine. The clouds would start to lift. I'd feel a bit better, mentally a lot better, physically not so much, but like that despair, that darkness came every week before my period started. And it was freaking debilitating. Even like anxiety and suicidal ideation, which is very hard to think about and talk about because, I don't know, I think when we say that, it just seems a lot more scary. It seems a lot more intense. But those were the feelings that were coming up, and it was, my hormones were so out of whack that my body was not regulated. So after every period, my body was trying to come back and it just couldn't. So then I would enter called the luteal phase, which we'll get into. And I was just overcome with dread, hatred, anger, just like rage, like not comfortable feelings. So cycle mapping and cycle syncing gave me the ability to identify when that was happening and recognize the pattern that like before my period I was not doing well, and it was not a normal like PMS situation. And weirdly around this time I ended up getting back on Instagram, which honestly has been positive in a lot of ways. I think it's also like I've had to manage scrolling and like learn how to mindfully consume, not mindlessly. But when I got on Instagram, I ended up finding a page, I'll include her below, her mood mentor, and her page is totally based on PMS and PMDD symptoms and trying to help you heal from that because she has also gone through that. So PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is a very intense form of PMS, like tenfold, like way more extreme. PMS just general like irritability, like kind of stuff like that. But then PMDD can be characterized by like an actual break from reality. Like you can go into a psychotic episode during these periods. And like, I don't know if I've talked too much about my mental health on YouTube, but I have gone through like assessments, and for a while it was like I met criteria for ADHD, autism, and bipolar all at once. And it was because of these like cyclical periods that I was going through right before my period. So I didn't know what was going on. I felt so fucking crazy, and I don't like using that word, but that is how I felt. I felt like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know up from down, and that was happening every month. So that hit a lot of boxes for me. So learning more about PMDD really opened up my eyes to the potential to healing and also improving these symptoms, like potentially not living in crisis half of every month. Cycle mapping is what I did to give you a clear idea. So I'll put that here. So cycle mapping is where you're tracking your cycles and your menstruation, the symptoms you're getting, your cervical fluid, and all your symptoms kind of around that period. And then once you have a better idea of where your cycle is at through cycle mapping, it can be really beneficial to start cycle syncing. Now that's a bit different. So cycle syncing is the way of living around your hormonal cycles. So it is thought that traditional like XY chromosome, I don't want to get like I'm not sure how to characterize this in terms of gender and appropriate, like the correct way. So feel free to correct me if you know how in the comments. Because I'm totally open to learn. I'm just not really sure how to phrase this. So the thought that men have a 24-hour hormonal clock and biological women, so men's 24-hour hormonal clock is consistent each day, whereas women have like a 21 to 45 day hormonal cycle. It's not just in 24 hours, it's over like 21 to 45 days. So it can be quite extensive, and we feel all of those things in a matter of a month, whereas men are pretty consistent from day to day. So that's important to keep in mind. The workforce, it is created based on a man's hormonal clock. Like, it is not based on women's hormonal cycles. Let's get into the 4 phases. So menstruation phase, we can all potentially figure that one out. So that is when you are actively bleeding, you are going through your period. And this is also known as the internal winter. So your energy is generally a lot lower. You want to be prioritizing rest at this time. Light movement like yoga or short walks. This is a really good time for journaling or inward reflection. So you'll likely feel more introspective and more like you want to like retreat and be a little introverted during this time. And that's completely normal. So yeah, lean into those movie nights, reading in bed, add in some Epsom salts to your baths to just give you some added magnesium. But yeah, that's the menstruation phase. So that is the start of your period until the end, when you are done bleeding. And then after your menstruation phase, you go into the follicular phase, also known as your internal spring. And is when your energy will likely start to increase, and it'll occur right after menstruation. So as soon as you are done bleeding, you are in the follicular phase, and that can last from anywhere from 2 to 7 days, depending on your cycle. So you are quick thinking at this time, your brain is a little more with it. You'll be able to problem solve likely, and do more intense workouts. So a great time to do like HIIT or strength training, just like getting out there, being like higher intensity workouts. Also a great time to get out and do some socializing and activities and connect with other people. You'll likely start to feel more extroverted and just like you want to get out and go and like hang out with people, like, hey, what's up? Like, you might start to notice that energy just naturally come up with you. And then that kind of leads us into the ovulatory phase, which is right after the follicular phase, and it is also known as the internal summer. So this is when you're going to feel the most confident, most outgoing. You are going to want to hang out with friends, you're going to want to chat. This is a great time to network if that's something you need to do, plan get-togethers. Like, this is the time. Hang out with people, get out for workouts, get out on the town. Whatever is suitable for you, focus on that in this time. So for me, I like to go biking in this time. I like to go hiking, maybe more active, calorie intense workouts because I have more energy naturally. This is also a great time for cruciferous vegetables. So this is going to help you detox the excess estrogen in your body and get you ready for your next phase. And this brings us into the luteal phase, aka internal fall. Now, the luteal phase has not always been my favorite phase, because it is generally when those PMDD symptoms or those intense PMS symptoms will likely start to come up. So if you are experiencing heightened anxiety, depression, a lot of these symptoms, it's a sign that you have low progesterone and like an abundance of estrogen, which you want to have less estrogen at this time and more progesterone. So that's what I've noticed in myself, that I generally get quite anxious in this time. So I've been trying to naturally increase my progesterone and decrease estrogen. So I've been eating broccoli by the bag. Like, no, not kidding. I literally had a full bag of broccoli yesterday as a snack. Maybe not yesterday, the day before. Just like steamed organic broccoli. Get it in you. Get that estrogen out. So I am not a nutritionist. I am not a doctor. I am simply a person that has gone through these symptoms and devoted a lot of time to learning about my own body and what works for me. So take this with a grain of salt. This will not necessarily work directly for you, but it may be a starting point or even just give you some ideas of something that you can look into. For me, I had never heard of PMDD before seeing that Instagram page, and it opened up my life to the possibility of healing or hope. And that was insane. So if you were anything like me and you have been living with debilitating periods where you want to die / you want to destroy your life every cycle, then I so hope that there is something in here that is valuable to you, or maybe just leads you to finding that valuable information for you. Because damn, periods are not easy or for the faint of heart, and I don't think they are talked about enough how fucking intense they can be. And like, even in a work setting, like, we lose out on hours, days of productivity every year because of our cycles. And that's not our fault. But in the workforce, it's not necessarily accepted to just be like, oh yeah, I have horrible period pain right now, I'm gonna go home. Or I've lost so much blood from my period, I can't walk. Like, I don't know about you, but that's not something I've seen very often. Now, graciously, I do work somewhere where they are, like, I can be like, my period is a lot, I can't come in today. And they are very understanding and supportive, so that I am grateful. I only hope that others can find that as well. Cry. Kinda sad. Now, there's a ton of information on this online. There's even a bunch of graphics that I personally found really helpful at the start. I found them on Pinterest initially, but they had like the luteal phase, menstrual phase, follicular, ovulatory, and they would write out like exercises to do at this time, foods to eat, like activities you want to do, like just ideas to get you kind of started. And then once you begin to understand how you feel in those phases, it's a lot easier to set it up for yourself. So now I'm finding things that work for me that aren't on the graphics, just because I have a better understanding of like where I'm at in each phase. Now, the really wild thing is you can actually reduce, and some people have completely rid themselves of PMS and PMDD symptoms by cycle syncing and actually eating the way, like providing your body with specific nutrients at certain times of your phases. Like, people have completely changed their lives. So let's get into what has worked for me. Okay, so what's helped the most so far? I would say the biggest thing and the first thing I really started implementing was more protein and the quality of protein. So when I wake up, I am generally like aggressively hungry to the point where I'm like nauseous. Like, if I don't eat, I feel like I'm gonna puke. So these have been a game changer. Now, these might not be the best for everyone, and I don't think it's going to be a permanent thing for me, but this has been a really great starting point. So I have some issues just with food and texture and just like getting nauseous with certain textures in my mouth and just like things like that. So you might be able to stomach like eggs or different textures right off the bat. But if not, these are great, / you may find other ones you like better. But these taste like a Girl Guide cookie, like the mint Girl Guide cookies. I love them. There's 20 grams of protein in here. They are, how many calories? 280 calories right off the bat. So usually before work, I've had one of these, and then lately I've also been having one of these. So that's like 700 calories right off the bat before I head into work. And that has made a huge difference. So one thing that can exacerbate, increase and make your symptoms worse is not eating enough, which I was completely unaware of. So with my stomach issues and just overall like nausea most of the time, I was not eating enough. Like I was getting maybe 600 calories a day, and I should be getting like 1,500 to 2,000. So I felt like shit constantly, like no wonder. So these SPERRI, shout out. They're made in Halifax, which is crazy. Amazing. I love what they're trying to do. They're specifically made with people with gastric issues in mind, with people who need extra support, a meal replacement on the go. I'm trying to think. They're just great. Organic, completely plant-based meal replacement, 16 grams of protein, and packed full of vitamins. So cannot recommend those enough, or something like that. So the big things, I guess the big takeaway from that was protein and calories, like the actual amount of food you are consuming, and also the quality of your protein. So if you can, you want to focus on organic, and if you're getting protein from meat, focus on grass-fed beef or grass-fed meat with preferably no antibiotics or anything else thrown in there, because those impact your hormones. So it's all just like we're being impacted by the food we eat, and it's just like a constant cycle. So when you're trying to choose these things to help, you just have to kind of be mindful on the quality of the food and the quality of the protein. And I understand that is not something that is accessible to everyone. Like organics is more expensive, and we have so noticed that. Like for us, we prioritize organics in like vitamins, health products, like flour, oil, beans, and they're often not as like, there's not a huge difference in the price of organic beans compared to non-organic beans if you're buying them dried, and that is huge. Those are the highest items that are sprayed. They have the highest count of pesticides, everything on it that are going to affect your hormones and your health. So bear that in mind, but don't let it like prevent you from feeding yourself, because fed is best, and I will stand by that. Now, okay, I digress. That was a lot on meat protein and the quality of protein. More protein, not meat protein. But that for me has probably made the biggest difference, and then it has led me to being able to eat actual food later on in the morning, or even for lunch. I've been able to have like a full meal, and then it cycles on into dinner, and then I'm not just like not eating for most of the day and then smoking and then just eating at night. So that's been really, really helpful. Since I've started focusing on protein first thing, I'm able to not only communicate easier at work and like at home with my partner, but I have more energy. So like last night it was like 7:30 and I was just like running on the spot. Like I was like, I have to get this energy out before bed. But that is like, I would usually be like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and like, gonna just lay here, please. And now I'm like, let's go, let's do something. So that is weird. The next thing that I would say made a big difference for me was implementing a high quality multivitamin. Now, this won't be for everyone, but this has worked out really well for me. So these were on sale when I got them, and the key vitamins I have been looking for were omega-3s, zinc, folate, and I guess magnesium, but I have that in something else. But for the amount you spend on each individual vitamin, it made more sense for me to get like a good quality multivitamin that had good amounts of all of those nutrients in it. So for multivitamins, something you want to focus on is that they are organic, for one, non-GMO preferably, and you want to be aware of the facility they're being produced in, because they might not be all encompassing in the organic sector, or like there might be cross-contamination. They might not follow great protocols in their factory. These are just all things to be weary of, especially with vitamins. So I really like this brand. See, Clean Label Project, non-GMO tested, free of GMOs, synthetic colors, artificial flavors and preservatives, yeast, wheat, milk, eggs, soy, gluten, peanuts, tree nut allergens, fish allergens, shellfish, and salicylates. And every batch is third-party lab tested. So these I freaking love. And I did get the prenatal version once because they're just higher in nutrients. So if you are starting off very deficient and you can get prenatal version, I would suggest that. Because they're gonna have more zinc, they're gonna have more folate, they're gonna have more omega-3, and it's gonna get you going faster. So that's what worked for me, was those. Now for me, it's a lot about the taste too. So if I don't like it, or like I can't swallow pills, so if it's like that, it's not gonna work. So bear that in mind when you're looking for things for yourself. Like, are you big on flavor? Is that a deterrent? Like, will you not eat something if it tastes bad? Because that's a big thing. Like, don't get something that tastes like shit, or like it's like a plain vitamin if you know you'll eat the gummies more, even if they're like a few dollars more expensive, right? Because you'd be wasting money if you get the ones you're not gonna eat, rather if you get the ones you know you'll like, but they're a bit more. So yeah. Now, one big thing for me, my hydration and lack thereof. So just who I am as a person, I struggle to stay on top of drinking water, remembering to drink water, and just hydrate in general. So these bad guys have been a game changer. Now, I didn't want something that was like Gatorade or like something like that, because that usually just makes me feel sick, like just from like the sugar. And then we came across these, the Organica electrolytes. So this I found at Costco for 24 bucks. Huge, amazing. So this one is a bit different because it has collagen, and the key thing here is it's sourced from grass-fed cows. So that is number one. Also, non-GMO, gluten-free, caffeine-free, and no sugar added. So hits all the boxes, it tastes delicious, and you're getting 5 grams of protein just from drinking like water. So they're kind of used for different things. So we like this one like bike riding or like more active, and then this is more like, I've started filling up my water bottle for work with this, and I feel night and day. Like I would be active, like quite active, like I'm shipping, and then I'll just forget to drink water. Like it's just me as a person, I just forget. But then this tastes good, so I want to drink it. And now I leave work and I feel like better, like I feel good. I just got this one. This seemed to be a better price point. So it's 100 servings, and it was just like a few more dollars than this one, and this one's only 60. So this is what we got this time. And these ones have added vitamin C, magnesium, and potassium. So great. I was actually deficient in potassium, which these things all impact you in weird ways and impact like communication, how you interact, how you move in the world, and like all of that was affected. So if you're someone like that forgets to drink water, I would suggest electrolytes. Potentially. Might not be for you, might be for you. The biggest impact, which is ironic because I'm drinking a cup of coffee, caffeine has been the biggest negative impactor on my symptoms. Now, I have pretty much cut out coffee entirely from like morning, so I don't have coffee when I first wake up, because that immediately affects your hormones, especially if it's on an empty stomach. So I've switched to tea. Now I'm addicted to tea. But I will get into these a bit more because these are great for other reasons as well. But switching out caffeine, like coffee, high amounts of caffeine, for tea, and then matcha has been really great. So matcha has something in it, but L-theanine, I don't know if that's the correct thing, but there is an ingredient in matcha that the way your body processes the caffeine, it's like a slow release situation, so you don't get as much of that like hyped up anxious coffee jitters that you get. It's more of like a slow alert, and you're just kind of more awake and more focused, and you don't get the same like crash that you do from coffee. So organic, ceremonial grade matcha is the key there. And that's just going to be good quality, because matcha and green tea can be very highly sprayed. So just pay attention to organic, and it's like very comparable in terms of price, because matcha is just already expensive. But like this was $30, and I've had it for like 3 months. So it's like, it lasts a really long time. Now, the symptoms from coffee that I didn't realize were coffee were things like breast soreness, like intense. Like, do you get that before your period where your breasts feel like they're going to explode? Could be coffee, could be caffeine. So that was the first thing I reduced, was coffee, and now I notice it. Like if I have like 3 or 4 cups in the phases leading up to my menstruation, it'll affect me. But if I have like 1 or 2 over the entire month, I'm okay. So it's really just learning your body and what makes you react, because it's going to be different than what makes me react. Now, let's see. Last but certainly not least, movement. Now, I'm not talking like going to the gym every day like for an hour, intense movement. I'm just talking like moving my body, getting outside for a light walk, doing some light stretching for 10 minutes, just moving. And that has been huge. So for a while I was focusing on walking outside pretty much daily, and that was a lot easier in the winter because we have a trail around here. But now, like summer, it's just quite overgrown and ticks. I don't want to avoid the woods because of ticks, but they really freak me out. So I do. Like the tall grass, tall unmanaged trails, I'm not in there. But we also did get Atlantic, which is like this natural tick spray. Like it's botanical. There's like essential oils in it that are just like ticks don't like. So we've got that to try and like deter it so we can still go in those trails. But long story short, I stopped going for walks, and then it led me into yoga, which at first I struggled with, and I couldn't do like 20-minute ones. I couldn't do very long sessions, but I just started doing these 10-minute yoga sessions, and there's a ton on YouTube. Like just do like 10-minute yoga, 10-minute stretch, and they'll be like, there's so many options. And that kind of got me started into that type of movement, and that has been really, really healing. And it's slow, it opens you up, and I find I am more able to like move in the space after that. Like I'll first get up and kind of be like stiff, and then like as my tea's steeping or like just like getting ready, I'll start doing like some light movement, and just like it turns into like a flow with the moves I've gotten familiar with now, and I feel so much lighter. I feel more positive. I'm just like, I feel capable. Whereas like when I just sat down and like would scroll, it would just be like doom, despair. So a big thing there has just been like, do the bare minimum. Don't stress yourself out about having to go to the gym for 2 hours or an hour or like something very intense right off the bat. Just focus on showing up, focusing on putting on your gym clothes or your leggings or whatever you're wearing. Focus on the before action and getting there, and that's gonna solidify the habit in your brain. And then once you go to put those clothes on or like start to get ready, it's easier to go through the motions because you're like, all right, well, I'm here. And your body can kind of like go through those movements almost mindlessly after a certain point. So then, I don't know. I always say it's way more about showing up than how long you stay or how like intense you work out. Because if you show up every day, like do a little bit every single day, you're gonna notice a huge difference. And that's with anything, like showing up for your own practice, showing up for your mental health, showing up at work. Like if you show up a little bit each day and try your best in the capacity you can, you fucking do anything. You could move mountains. I'm saying that to myself as well, because it is very easy to get stuck in like the feeling that you're not doing much when you're doing like little actions. But then take a step back and look at that progress, because I bet you've made a ton. And that's honestly what I'm noticing just by talking with you through this video, is that I'm noticing a lot of progress that I hadn't years ago, 2 years ago, a month ago even, and that's been from focusing on these areas. I think the biggest game changer for me was when my partner actually noticed and he could tell that something had changed. Like there was no longer these huge dips in my mood. I wasn't like just weepy like for that entire week before my period and just like pissed off, like annoyed at him for just existing. Like that has stopped. And now it's like we went to the movies like the day before my period, which would have never happened. Like by then I would have already been like, ugh. But I didn't even know it was like gonna hit. Like I had no intense symptoms. I was totally okay. I even went out for lunch with coworkers during my luteal phase, which is usually when I'm like, isolate, I can't talk to anyone. But I did it. And it's like, it feels like there's hope for the future of my life, because I know I can actually like get through a month without having 2 weeks of just not being functioning. So cycle syncing, hormonal health is real, and it's affecting us way more than I think we realize and that people are talking about. So if any of this hits home for you, any of the symptoms I talked about, I so encourage you to look into this more, or just rate a comment below. Like I would love to chat about this stuff. Now I'm going to be totally clear. It's been yeah, it has been years of slow progress that I never thought I would see. And to be totally fair, I still have shitty days sometimes, and days where I am overly emotional. However, I feel like there's a lot less shame around it, and I have a lot more tools to not only regulate myself, but calm myself down and give myself the space to be okay. So when I start to feel overwhelmed with emotion, or I'm crying at things I wouldn't normally be crying at, I can be like, oh, what phase I'm in? Okay, I'm in the luteal phase. Like things are more, like my hormones are increasing. This makes sense. And there's less like, I don't know, it feels less serious. It feels less detrimental. It feels less daunting when I'm aware of what's going on with myself, and I have some tools that I can use to improve it. And that's been huge. Now, I will say that I still do experience very intense periods in the sense of blood loss, and pain has been reduced quite extensively. I no longer vomit for my periods, but I am still like, I'm not going for a walk, I'm not going for a hike, I'm often not going to work either. Like I can get through usually the first 2 days, and then blood loss usually catches up to me by the third day usually. and then I'm usually out of work for the third and fourth day. And that's like where I'm at. So through this, I've learned I do meet symptoms, some symptoms for endometriosis, and I did see an internal medicine doctor, and that was her thought as well. And then I saw a gynecologist, and it was a very brief appointment, and nothing has really gone past that. So they gave me a prescription for managing the amount of blood I lose, but I am quite hesitant to take it, so I actually haven't tried it yet. It's basically just medication you would get if you went to the hospital and like had an aggressive nosebleed that wouldn't stop bleeding, or like your leg was bleeding. They would give you this to like clot your blood. So kind of just makes me feel a little uneasy using it, because I don't want to give myself a blood clot, but I also don't want to pass out. So I know I have that as an option if it gets that severe, but like just bear that in mind. All of our periods are different, all of our hormones, all of our bodies are different. So what works for my cycles, or what has helped me get to this point, might not necessarily help you in the same way. Or maybe you'll find something that works for you that doesn't work for me. Like, just, yeah, be your own advocate and listen to you. Just because I'm using these doesn't mean you need to use these. Like, I've seen a lot of people have benefit just from putting like a little bit of salt, a little bit of lemon, just in your water. And that's minerals, like salt and acid in your water. You do get electrolytes from that. So there's a lot of other ways to support yourself hormonally and mentally. So, yes, okay. So things that I use to actually reduce my discomfort and pain during my menstrual cycle. This, game changer. If you have not tried raspberry leaf tea, I so encourage it. It has been quite hard to find lately, but tart red raspberry leaf is great for reducing cramps. It strengthens the uterine lining, which amazing. And it does reduce cramps like while you're drinking it. So you can have 3 a day, and I usually do during my period, and these make a huge difference. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I use that on top of CBD oil generally, and CBD oil takes care of most of the intense cramping pain, and then this just helps actually help support your uterine lining, your uterus, whereas CBD oil is just like managing the pain. This is great for after your period. So dandelion root tea can help you detox the excess estrogen as well. I'm huge on taste, and I am not a big fan of the taste of it. It is definitely more earthy. So if that is your thing, this one might be good for you, but this one is really good to detox. Baths. I've been having a ton of baths. Now, the key thing with baths is that if you are making them so hot where you're sweating a lot and just like a lot of stuff is coming out, like you're really detoxing, you just want to make sure you shower after, or like lightly rinse off, or else all of the stuff that you've just kind of detoxed from your body just goes right back in. So have a hot ass bath, put your Epsom salts in, and then rinse off in the shower, and feel so much better after, just like lighter. So that's become a big part of my like after work routine, / I will either like have a quick shower or have a bath, and that kind of like helps me regulate. So find things that work for you. These things might not be your ideals, but there is so much research out there, and if this is just a starting point, then amazing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope this was maybe just helpful. Maybe it just gave you some ideas of where to start. Maybe it just, I don't know, you're just like, I've never heard of PMDD or PMS, and you're just interested. Maybe you don't menstruate and you're just curious. either way, I appreciate you being here. If you're interested in more videos like this, I have a few others where I talk about my low waist period routine down there. That's a few years ago. I've done an updated one as well. And yeah, that's about it. If you'd like to follow along more for hormonal health tips and tricks or things I'm doing to manage my own health, make sure you follow me on Instagram here at That Beautiful Brain. And you can also check out my blog as well at thatbeautifulbrain.ca.